All right, good evening, everyone. It's 7 p.m. in NYC and 4 p.m. in the Napa Valley. I'm Sam Kimball from Crush Wine Experiences, formerly New York Wine Events. Thank you so much for joining us for virtual day trip to wine country presented by Citi. We are here for 4 absolutely delicious wines from Napa Valley. And we're going to Grgich Hills Estate, an iconic winery located in Rutherford, California, right there in the heart of Napa Valley. Grgich Hills Estate is truly a Napa Valley legacy. It's been passionately crafted for more than 50 years. It's still family owned and utilizes organic farming practices. And it sits in amongst some of the most famous and best wineries in Napa, California. In the Napa Valley. I want to share with you an interesting background fact and sort of part of the origin story. And that is about the founder of Grgich Hills Estate, Mike Grgich. And I'm going to put up a picture of him in the background here. Bear with me a moment. There is Mike in my background. Mike is 98 years young. He's a Croatian American. He left communist Yugoslavia in 1954, almost 70 years ago, with $30 US in his pocket. It was actually sewn into the sole of his shoe, and he came to America. And he made his way across the US, and that $30 in his shoe helped him get to California, and the rest is history. Grgich is today an internationally known award-winning winery in the Napa Valley. And we're going to talk more about Mike in a little bit with our guest, but very interesting origin story. And the other thing I want to talk about for a moment is the Napa Valley, which obviously an absolutely beautiful area for wineries. You see that winery and vineyard in my background. That's part of Grgich Hills Estate. And everyone knows it's famous as a wine growing region, but did you know that only 4% of all the wine grapes grown in California come from the Napa Valley? It's a dry Mediterranean climate, covering only 2% of the Earth's surface, and yet the Napa Valley wine industry represents $50 billion to the American economy. So it's a small and very precious place in terms of the richness of its wine growing, and yet it is a massive presence on the stage, the world stage of winemaking, wine growing. There are 430 wineries in Napa County, producing 800 plus different wine brands. And you know, obviously Napa is in California, and it's the home of Grgich Hills Estate, and it became famous back in the 70s around the time of something called the 1976 Judgment of Paris, which was an international wine competition. We'll talk more about that and why Grgich was involved in that. But the hint is that Mike Grgich, the gentleman you just saw on screen, actually played a role, an important role in that process. So we'll talk about why a little bit later, but the hint is Mike Grgich. Overall, Napa is, of course, in California, which is the #1 wine growing region in the US, home to 4,000 plus wineries. 50% of all wineries in the United States are located in California. And the state produces an estimated 588 million gallons of bottled wine each year. So very interesting stuff. You're going to learn more about it and some great wines. I want to welcome everybody. Thank you all for tuning in. We got a great group tonight. Welcome one, welcome all. Please ask any questions or make comments during the session in the chat in Zoom, if you would. And we will answer those questions and comments as we go in real time on the fly during the session. Also, if you would, hit the chat right now and let us know where in the world you are tuning in from. We love seeing that, and it's amazing to us. Every week we have a different group of people from all parts of the country Welcome, Durham, North Carolina, Long Island, Springfield, New Jersey. Excellent, excellent. West Orange, Belmont, Boston. Oh my God, we are spreading it out. Dallas, Texas, Chicago. Love it, love it. New Jersey, more Jersey, California, Colorado. So cool to see everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is a lot of fun for us. We've had tremendous interest in this virtual tasting with Grgich Hills Estate, and for very good reason. The wines are extraordinary. Can't wait to start tasting. So this evening, we're going to travel virtually to Rutherford, California, which is the home of Grgich Hills Estate. And I'm going to put that up in my background. You can see where that little red map pin is. That's where Rutherford is, right there in the Napa Valley. So we're northeast of San Francisco, about an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and 20, depending on traffic, obviously. A beautiful part of the country. Rutherford is considered a mecca for Cabernet Sauvignon. It's located in the widest part of Napa Valley. It gets great sunshine. And actually, the town of Rutherford is really more of a hamlet. I think the 2010 census, it had less than 200 residents in the town of Rutherford. So it may seem like it's a famous place, and it is in the Napa Valley, but in Rutherford, it's a small little hamlet there. And as I said, Grgich Hills Estate is, of course, a staple of the top wineries out of the Napa Valley. To learn all about Grgich Hills and to learn more about it, and also find all of the wines, I'm going to put up in my background a screen showing the URL and also the wines that we're going to taste this evening. It is truly my pleasure to introduce our special guest, Clay Simpson, the brand ambassador at Grgich Hills Estate. He is also a virtual wine tasting host and a veteran of many of these sessions. Clay, welcome. It is great having you here. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, Sam and all, and thanks for having myself and Grgich Hills as part of your event.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure. Where does this broadcast find you this evening?
Well, I wish I was down in the vineyards, but I'm getting to work remotely today. So I'm in Napa Valley, just south of Napa proper, and getting to hang out here for right now. We're still pretty COVID cautious, so a lot of us work remotely.
So, and is the tasting room open at the winery?
Oh, absolutely. We're lucky. We have great outdoor seating. So most of the time we've been able to host people outdoors. And now things have loosened up that we can move people indoors as weather allows or requires. And effectively, very, very soon, the mask requirements and everything is beginning to relax a little bit. So not quite normal, but we are helping. Things are improving for the season, and we're looking for great things, spring and summer.
So let me just do a quick informal poll in the chat. How many of the folks who are tuned in and watching, how many of you guys have had Grgich Hills Estate wines before? And just hit the chat and let us know. I see a yes. There's a couple of no's, but a lot of yeses. Love it.
Yes, took the train.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's great. Well, not a lot of people in the chat have not, but even for those of us, and I count myself among them, who are familiar with Grgich, but not, encyclopedically knowledgeable about the brand, what would you say, Clay, to somebody who knew a little bit about Grgich, had tried some of the wines, or maybe had never tried them? What is, so to speak, the unique point of difference, or as I like to say, the calling card of Grgich Hills Estate wines?
Well, the way I explain it, we're kind of world famous for our Chardonnay because of Mike's involvement in the Judgment of Paris and the accolades he's gotten for those wines, constantly, to be honest. But the winery, as you were mentioning, is in Rutherford, which is really the heart of the valley, the heart of Cabernet country. So I say we may be famous for Chardonnay, but we live in in Cabernet country, and we have vineyards spread all up and down the valley. So you're going to get a nice range of varietals. And our style in general is we produce wines that are varietally correct, and they should represent the environment or terroir that they come from. And we strive for finesse and elegance, drinkable as young wines, but most everything will lay down and age nicely. Our Chardonnays will age very well for Chardonnay, and then all of our red wines do very well.
Excellent. Tell us a little bit about the organic practices and what Grgich Hills does on that front. Because I know I, for one, am very interested in that. I love wines that are, as natural as possible, minimal intervention. What does Grgich do on that organic front?
Well, all of our vineyards are fully certified organic. That means we don't use any chemicals, sprays, or anything like that, nothing except natural products in our vineyard. Doesn't mean our wines are organic. We do use a little bit of sulfites, but even with that, in the production process, but even with that, it's absolute minimal. And again, you kind of said it, minimal intervention. Strive to let the fruit. That's really Mike's philosophy. Early in his career, he did a lot of things, manipulation that they thought was the thing. And then one of the stories that's told is how a friend of his was making wine almost in his garage, didn't have access to all that high-tech equipment, and Mike loved his wine and said, why am I doing that? The wine is the star. So in the vineyards, fully certified organic, our winemaker, Ivo Jeramaz, he is Mike Grgich's grandnephew. He's wonderful. He can talk about dirt for hours and keep you entertained, which is pretty amazing. And it's all about the microbes and the fungi and the nematodes and all the things going on in the soil. And we test and analyze constantly so that we can catch it early. There you go. That's his daughter, Violet, our president, Ivo, our winemaker, and Mike. And, that's what's important. And so we manage them naturally through things like cover crops, natural fertilization. We literally have sheep at one of our sheep and chickens and pigs at one of our vineyards so that we have, the natural composting material that is, worked into the process. So we've been doing it a long time. It's not, it's very popular up here now, but we've been doing it for, I think about 20 years. So it's all about producing the very best fruit we can, because it takes the very best fruit to make the very best wine.
Got it. And as you mentioned, that's Ivo there on the left of the screen, and Mike, of course, and Mike's daughter, Violet, who is the president now of the winery. Right. And Ivo is from Yugoslavia. He's Croatian as well. He's from the former Yugoslavia.
Yeah, he's so much fun to listen to talk about, the organic processes. And like I said, he sure makes dirt sound good.
Excellent. All right. I want to pause for a second. I saw a couple of people raise their hand. If you have a question, please just put it in the chat, or you can use the Q&A module. I think somebody did. So Eddie asked, how old is Mike now? And how many cases of wine does Grgich Hills make today? So Mike is 98, I believe.
Mike will be 99 on April 1st. And wow. Our production, we are not a really big winery. Our production is about 70,000 cases a year. And while it sounds like a lot, it's literally a drop in a bucket compared to the big guys. And half of that is our Napa Valley, almost half, our Napa Valley Chardonnay. And then another good portion is our Napa Valley Cab, which we'll be trying here tonight. And then after that, we make a number of wines. We make very small quantities, and our what I call our winery only selections don't usually get out into the real world, into the restaurants and um, wine stores. Our Yountville Cab and Paris tasting a little bit, not much.
Yep. Yeah, the Chardonnay. Let's talk for a moment about the Judgment of Paris, 1976. Tell everybody who's watching what was Mike's role in that, and why was it so important for the California winemaking industry?
Well, at the time, it was considered that pretty much only the French made world-class wines. The Italians made some good wine, the Spanish made good wines, but the French, felt they made the very best. And when this event happened, it really wasn't set out to change the world. It was just a wine merchant, a British wine merchant, trying to promote his own wine store and school in Paris, Stephen Spurrier. And it was kind of considered a non-event because, of course, the French wines were going to come out on top. So when the California wines came out on top in both the red and the white category, it really opened a lot of people's eyes. It put Napa on the world wine map for that very first time. And our founder, Mike Grgich, made the Chardonnay that ended up getting the highest total point count also. So many people, and they were up against the very best the French had to offer. Both white Burgundies, Chardonnays, and Bordeaux's, red blends, put up against Napa Cabs. So it not only opened the world's eyes to Napa, but to all the regions that today we know as New World wine regions. Chile, South America, South Africa, all these other places that nobody would even think about could produce those quality wines. Today we know better. They're making world-class wines in many, many different regions. And I expect at some point the next judgment we'll hear about that'll make news will be the Judgment of California, where some of the secondary regions in California do the same thing to Napa, knock them off to everybody's surprise. It may not be a Cabernet, but there's some great varietals being produced in other areas of California that everybody should really take notice of. So it put us on the world wine map. Mike made that white wine, and he did a number of other things that also helped Napa Valley. Mike and people like Robert Mondavi, Andre Tishlachev, who was kind of the godfather of all these winemakers. They worked more than just on their winery. They worked on elevating the Napa Valley as a wine region. And that was really important, really put us on the path of where we are today.
Yep.
And I see one great thing. Yes, it was very significant that in the Judgment of Paris, all the judges were French. And if you got to see the movie Bottle Shock if you haven't, because they tell part of the story. It's partly true, but it is enjoyable in itself. But as a wine person, if you like Napa, you'll really enjoy it.
Yeah, no, Philip, thank you for that. That's a very important point. The judges were French, and the number one wine for red was the winner was the Stag's Leap Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa Valley, and the winner of the best white wine was Chateau Montelena from the Napa Valley. And it was the Chardonnay, and the person who was the winemaker at Chateau Montelena was Mike Grgich. And so he really played a very important role in that. A couple questions, Clay. How old are the oldest vines on the various vineyards that Grgich owns?
Oh, fun. We're very proud of the fact that Cabernet, we have some of the oldest cab vines in the valley. Cab sells for such a high price, and the yield really falls off after about 25 years. So just due to the cost, most wineries rip them out. And so you don't see very many Cabernet vines over 25 years old. In our Yountville vineyard, which happens to be the one right behind Sam right now, some of those vines behind him are about 62 years old now. And when I first got here, we were saying they were the second oldest Cabernet vines in the valley. I've talked to a journalist who has done actual research, and he said we're probably fourth oldest, but he said we're also counting by months and not years. So right there, that's some of the oldest areas that were planted in the Napa Valley. Not only are they the oldest Cabernet vines, this little area in Yountville was some of the earliest planted with grapevines at all. So historically significant. Europeans recognized the value of these areas very early on. Now, on Zinfandel, we have our old vine Zin that we grow up in Calistoga. And up there, our vines are closer to 140 years old. And believe it or not, at 140 years old, they're probably not really in the running for the oldest Zinfandel vines in the valley. There's some old ones that survived, mainly because they survived the phylloxera invasions of the late 1800s and earlier in the 20th century, when phylloxera won't survive in sandy soils, and there was a lot of Zinfandel planted in some of the sandy areas. And so we have a number of good ones. So we have a small amount of our old vine Zin that is spectacular, and our flagship Cabernet, our old vine, Yountville Old Vine Cabernet.
And those Zins, the flagship Zin is about 15% or approximately alcohol volume, yeah?
Probably close, a little bit higher, typically with Zinfandel. But we approach it a little, that's where our finesse and elegant style, I think, really shows, because Zinfandel it ripens uneven. So one of the ways people work with Zinfandel is they let it get very ripe so that they don't have as many green berries to contend with. So that's one of the reasons that many Zinfandels are almost sweet, high alcohol, and jammy. We do it a little different. We harvest as the fruit gets ripened. We'll make a few passes through the vineyard at different times so that we're harvesting all the fruit at optimal ripeness, and not with part of it very ripe or maybe parts overripe and underripe. So that is the beginning. And so our Zinfandels, you'll see it in our Napa Valley also. There's much more finesse and elegance on our Zin compared to many California style Zins, because Zin likes hot weather, and it's really easy to have that, kind of big blown jammy. And that's kind of what you're getting in general with old vine, deep, rich, concentrated flavors to start. So we control that with that finesse and elegance. Our whole style really shows in that wine.
How many varietals, question from Nancy, how many varietals does Grgich Hills make wine from? How many different grape types?
I saw that and I tried to count. Okay, so we have 5 Napa Valley, Sauv Blanc, Chardonnay, Zin, Merlot, Cabernet. We do Petit Syrah, some Petit Verdot. We did Gewürztraminer as a standalone wine for the first time this season. or at
Wow.
least for the first time in ages. I think they used to do it. We use that in our Violetta, so it's part of our Carneros and American Canyon vineyards. And I think that's most of the Violetta, which is a blend of, it's a late harvest Boichitis wine, dessert wine. Merlot, I think that's about it. We don't do much Petit Verdot. It's a blend wine usually, but occasionally we do that. And the Petit Syrah may be my favorite that we do, a little bit like What's Your Favorite Child?
Yep. I think Philip nailed it here too. When we talk about the calling card of Grgich, the fruit and the finesse is definitely part of that calling card. What makes Grgich different and sets it apart? I think that, you know, that finesse that you mentioned and just this the stewardship of the vineyards, minimal intervention, but just absolutely gorgeous on the fruit side and the finesse in the winemaking. All right, well, a couple other questions. We should momentarily, let's get started tasting wine. What else should we know about any of the particular vineyards? I mean, everything's in Napa, but Napa Valley is, you know, Napa County is quite large, if, you know, top to bottom. So what's in Calistoga is different, almost a different microclimate than what is in other parts of the valley. Where do you grow most of the Chardonnay? That's your signature wine. Where is most of that coming from?
Well, all the Chardonnay and our Sauvignon Blanc, which we'll taste next, those both come from our southernmost vineyards. And you're right, we have vineyards that stretch literally the full length of Napa Valley. Carneros and American Canyon are on the southernmost end of the valley where it's cooler, closer to the bay, more breezes, and you're going to get more higher acidity. That's what we're looking for in those cooler regions, not as ripe. So we love that for our white wines. And as you move up valley, it warms up. So next up the road would be Yountville, about 8 miles south of Rutherford. And so nice mid, you still get some of those cool breezes off the bay in the afternoon and evenings. You move up to Rutherford, as Sam said, more or less the widest part of the valley there in Oakville. Very classic Cabernet area. And then Calistoga, all the way at the far end. And Calistoga, even though it's at the very far end, it's not quite the hottest region because there's actually a little opening over to Santa Rosa and that little closer to the coast. So Calistoga itself is just a touch cooler than just a couple miles south behind some of those hills, but it's still considerably warmer in Calistoga than it is in, even Yountville, the southern end of the valley. And that's why we grow our Petit Syrah and Zinfandel mainly up in Calistoga, Cabernet in a lot of places, and then those 2 white varietals all the way down on the cool end. And those temperature differences make a huge difference in what characteristics you get off of the wine. You're muted, Sam.
Sorry, guys. Let's get started tasting. I'd like to start. This is slightly counterintuitive, but we'll start with the Chardonnay first, just because it really is the signature at Grgich. Tell us a little bit about the tasting notes here. I mean, this is, with the Cabernet Sauvignon, is absolutely my favorite Grgich selection. Super food friendly. And it's got just a nice touch of that French oak. Just absolutely spectacular wine. I always love tasting this wine. I'm actually pairing it with an aged Gruyere, which it's a delicious combination. But give us a little bit of the sort of the tasting notes on this one and the background of this wine.
Okay, well, as I said, this is our Napa Valley Chardonnay, and this is the wine we produce the most of. This is what you'll find in most stores and fine restaurants. It's a leading Chardonnay in fine restaurants all over the country. Um, I'm impressed with this wine. I don't drink our Napa Valley. I don't drink a lot so much anymore, so I'm fortunate. I get to focus mainly on the winery only selections. And every time I get to taste this wine, I'm just so reminded how good this wine is. It's what I call a top shelf distributed Chardonnay,
Mhm.
and that's where you'll find it in your stores. And none of our Chardonnays go through malolactic fermentation, and that's the process that's converting that bright, crisp citrusy acids, lactic acid, into a little softer, malic acid into the little softer lactic acid that you find in dairy products. And that's what gives a Chardonnay its butteriness. So we don't do
Yep.
that with any of our Chardonnays. We like that bright, crisp, refreshing acidity, what I call that mouth-watering acidity. And that really shows up in this wine. It's got a moderate oak finish on it, so you pick up hints of it, but it's not overdone. And it does age thoroughly or on the yeast, the dead yeast cells. And that gives it a hint of kind of yeast or brioche in there. And even for a distributed wine, you pick up little notes of it. So I love to pour this wine colder because it's going to be a little different. And then I love to come back to it every few minutes, and every sip I'm going to pick up a little bit more on this wine. Starts out more of the grapefruity, and then it warms up, and I pick
Yep.
out almost tropical flavors in here, that hints of the vanilla from the barrel. Ah, excellent Chardonnay.
Yeah, the nose, the bouquet, the aromatics are wonderful. I serve this one not quite as cold as the Sauvignon Blanc, because it does have a little of the oak. It's got a little bit of that softer mouthfeel and taste to it. I was always taught in my sommelier training that the Chardonnays, especially those that have even seen a little bit of oak, should be served lightly chilled versus a very chilled where you have a Sauv Blanc or a dry Riesling. A quick couple of questions. How long is this in barrels? Is a question that we just got from Alicia.
I believe this spends about 8 months in neutral oak. So there's a hint of the vanilla in there, but I don't think this gets very much new French oak at all.
Yep.
And that's kind of our style, moderate oak influence. We don't want anything to overpower. We want the fruit to be the star.
Couple other questions. So an important one. What's the price point on the Chardonnay? Their half bottles are available at Grgich.com, but also full bottles, regular size, 750 milliliter. What's the price point on the Chardonnay?
The Chardonnay is 40. Oh, just the new vintage is out, so it's $44 a bottle.
For the 750 for the regular size.
750, and believe it or not, right now we're pulled our most of our half bottles for a while, and I'm kind of to blame because we've done such a very good job with our virtual tasting experiences that we've had to kind of reserve inventory for them. And
Okay.
so for right now, they're temporarily off. We are boosting production because our virtual program has really gone gangbusters, whether for groups like this or lots of big corporate groups. So we will have them again, but it'll be just a couple months, I think.
So now, and what's the promo code? If somebody goes to Grgich.com and wants the discount for tonight, what's the promo code?
We have a promo code for you online, virtual 15.
Okay.
Should accept it. We just got it created. I haven't actually tested it, but I hear it works. and that's good for 15% savings. And if you can order a case or more, order it with me direct at, you can call or get me at clay@Grgich, because the coupon will only go up to 15%. I have a little more flexibility. And also, if you order direct with me, I can get you access to what we call the winery, wine club only wines that you wouldn't be able to order online. But most everything is available there, and you'll be okay.
Okay, I put the promo code virtual15, virtual15, in the chat, and I also put in your email to contact you directly as well.
Perfect. If you have any problems, let me know. We'll make everything good.
Now, the half bottle is still on the website, just so you know. It's live. The 2018 Chardonnay is live on the site. It's letting me put it in the cart.
Okay, as long as they let it, they're okay. And some of them have been pulled, and
yep. So this one is $23 for the half bottle. Just in case anybody's curious, I'll put the URL in the chat in the store there on Grgich.com. I think it might be the Fume Blanc. The next wine we're going to taste is the Fume Blanc, which is a Sauvignon Blanc, and also great, very refreshing. Obviously, no oak. This is all steel fermentation. Tell us a little bit about this one, Clay.
Okay, our Sauvignon Blanc, grown in fact, the vineyard that's on my background now, American Canyon, and down in Carneros. They're more or less across the highway from each other on the south end of the valley. Eventually, American Canyon will be its own AVA, but for right now, it's just part of the Napa Valley AVA, the big one. Sauvignon Blanc, we for years called it Fume Blanc, which is really just a marketing term. You can literally put that name on a glass of water, but we've gone to the varietal name because at one time, Sauvignon Blanc did not have a good reputation. It was an inexpensive jug wine, often sweet. And it was Robert Mondavi who coined the name, or actually Margaret Mondavi, Fume Blanc. They borrowed part of the name from a village in France, Puy-Fume, and Blanc from the grape, Sauvignon Blanc, because they wanted to separate a new style of Sauvignon Blanc, to separate it from the inexpensive one. So they called it Fume Blanc. Everybody loved it. What I didn't know until I got to Grgich Hills was that our founder, Mike Grgich, was the winemaker at Mondavi at the time and helped craft that original Fume Blanc. So Mike really kind of, almost as an homage to Robert Mondavi, always called his Fume Blanc, or Sauvignon Blanc, Fume Blanc. It does have an oak influence, and that's what most of your Fume Blancs are, but they're not required to have that. And we didn't change the wine. We just kind of shuffled the label a little bit. And our style, I love our Sauvignon Blanc. We have two. Actually, we have a brand new one too, a skin fermented Sauvignon Blanc that is brand new. And so our style, again, finesse and elegance, great citrus notes on this wine.
Yeah, I'm getting I get some tropical off of this. Just beautiful aromatics.
Yeah, just a mouth-watering acidity on that wine, and the flavor just pops. And I'm not even a big fan of Sauvignon Blanc, and every time I drink ours, it just reminds me how good they are. They're just bright, crisp, refreshing. I love it chilled up, but I also love the way it develops, and the flavors really round out very nicely as that wine warms up a little bit. And to me, then the grapefruit really pops through, and excellent wine, great with those summertime food salads, especially your salads with chicken, salad with chicken on it, or steak on it or even crab, those kinds of things. Wonderful. So lots of bright acidity, great citrus notes from the south end of the valley, and a real big fan favorite of all of ours. I call it the big sister, this wine, our Essence Sauvignon Blanc, is part of our legacy tier wine and just gets all the very best fruit, little bit of a blend. We throw a little bit of I think it's that musk clone that somebody referenced there. And just adds a little bit of layers to it, but really just an amazing, bright, crisp, refreshing Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah, no, this one has a wonderful bouquet, and I like to pair this with grilled scallops with
excellent.
Very little on them, just grilled scallops in this Sauvignon Blanc. I also like to pair it with white clam pizza because it's terrific with seafood. I'm going to put it up again in the screen. So this one is how much for the full bottle, 750 milliliters, and how much for that half bottle? And is the half bottle even available?
Again, I'm thinking the half bottles may have been pulled, but if it's available, order it if you can. They should be $31 a bottle for the full size bottle. And our half bottles are usually half price plus $1 or so, for the extra bottling we do.
Yep. Yeah, I'm seeing it on the site. The half bottle, let's just see here. The 2018 looks like it's available. The 19, the half bottles are available on the site. So there's $16.50 for a half bottle of the Fume Blanc. And the 2019 Fume Blanc doesn't look like it's here. I think it's the 2018 that's listed at 31 is what you were saying.
So order up quick because those are likely going to get pulled in the not too distant future.
Okay.
To hold them for our virtual program.
And in terms of cheese, I would go goat cheese with this one.
Oh, it would be wonderful with goat cheese. And I love to take my goat cheese and flavor it up too. So I have all kinds of fun when doing this one. And quite a bit.
So to answer Mark, does the Sauvignon Blanc have any grassy notes? Not so much. It's more of the tropical and the citrus. It doesn't have that grassiness that the New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs have. Nothing wrong with them, but this one has a different characteristic. Excellent. So let's move on to the Merlot. And then there's a question I'll answer it on the fly because we try to do that from Eddie about the Cabernet vintage. It's the 2018 that we're tasting tonight, Eddie. And what's the pricing on the Cabernet? Just so we can answer quickly, Clay.
The Cab, we just moved to the 2018. So I actually have got the 17 in my glass. I'm lucking out. Yep. And it should be 72 a bottle.
For the 700, the regular size bottle. And then I think there might be half bottles. I'll double check it on the site.
Yeah, and again, that one I know will be going away because that was one of the ones were very low. Merlot shouldn't be out there. That one, if it is, that one will definitely have to be pulled quick because that's one we know we're very low on.
Yep. The half bottle. So the 2018 on the site right now, Clay, it says it's club only.
Okay.
And I think if and the 17 is listed at $72 a bottle for the Cabernet Sauvignon, and the 2017 half bottle is listed at $37 a bottle. So hopefully that
pricing is correct. Yeah.
Yep. So let's talk about the Merlot.
All right. Merlot's a fun one for me. I like Merlot. Merlot is such a misunderstood grape. And, part of it was the movie Sideways, didn't do it any help. It got popular in the 90s, I guess it was, and probably it got planted in a lot of areas maybe it shouldn't have. And so there was a lot of less than stellar Merlot around for a while. So when I first got into the wine pouring business about 8 or 9 years ago, there was a lot of almost ill will about it. And I almost enjoyed it because people would say, oh, I don't like Merlots. And so I would turn the label backwards. I would pour the Merlot and I would tell them, this is a wonderful Bordeaux style wine. And then they would say, oh, I love Bordeaux's. And I'd pour it, come back to them a couple moments later, ask them how they like that wine and listen to them tell me how much they like that, how much they love Bordeaux's. And I'd say, great, I'm so glad you liked our Merlot. And then they would, kind of hem and haw and, oh, I didn't know. And what many of us don't know is that Merlot is the leading grape of the Bordeaux region in France. Something like 65% of all the vines in the region are Merlot. Some of the most treasured wines in the world are Merlot forward wines, often blends, and mostly from the right bank. The cab is mostly on the left bank of the Bordeaux region. So now our Merlot is mostly Merlot. The blend varies a little bit vintage to vintage. This is probably about 92%, I believe, the rest being cab. And that to me is just the absolute classic blending. Cab and Merlot work so well together. I call them almost cousins. But Merlot is a little understated at times by itself, and Cabernet can be a little enthusiastic at times. And so when you blend them, the Cab brings out some of the better qualities and the best qualities of the Merlot, and the Merlot does the same thing. It kind of tones down that enthusiasm. So you have
it's one of the principal blending wines for some of the best blend selections in the world. And as Philip just pointed out, there's even some of the most famous wines that, like the Pomerols, including Petrus, which are 100% Merlot. So the whole thing was Sideways, the movie, tanking the Merlot business in the wine industry, which it did for a few years, is really it's really a fallacy. It's really a red herring. Merlot is spectacular and can be spectacular by itself. And as a blending grape, it's spectacular.
Absolutely. And here's one of the hints about Merlot. Here in the Napa Valley, Cab is king and sells for just crazy, crazy prices. 2 and 3 times as much per ton as the next leading grape. So believe it or not, you can get super high quality Merlots at a bargain compared to Cabernets. Our own pricing shows that. And we own our own vineyards. We know we can get more for a cab. So our Napa Valley Cab, 72 a bottle. Our Napa Valley Merlot, 43 a bottle. And to me, it's every bit as good of a wine. Mostly Merlot. Now we grow Merlot in 3 different vineyards. And that's part of the beauty of this wine. You're not only getting the layers from Cab and Merlot, you're getting layers of flavor from the Merlot being from the different regions. So you're getting different flavor profiles from the Merlot blended with the Cab. So you get a very elegant Merlot, excellent food wine, just not as aggressive, as enthusiastic as the Cabernet. And these are fun ones to do side by side because you get the chance to notice the similarities and the differences. So good stuff.
Yes, absolutely. And I just want to point something out. So I during the time that Sideways tanked the Merlot business, a friend of mine is a wine expert and sommelier, encouraged me to get a bottle of Silverado Merlot. And even today, we are almost 20 years on from the release of the movie Sideways. The Silverado, which is also another fine winery in Napa, their Merlot is 25% less expensive than their Cabernet. And for no good reason. They're both fantastic wines, but based on that reputation. Anyway, so yeah, I think it's just an interesting point. What percentage of the Merlot is in the Merlot? I think it's 100%.
I think no, because there's some cab blended in this. So I want to say, without looking, it's going to be about 92 to 94%, depending on the vintage.
Right.
I can maybe find that quick and easy.
Yep. Okay. Great. All right. Well, let's talk about the Cabernet, because we're coming up on time here. By the way, I paired the Merlot with Brie, double cream Brie, and it was magical, absolutely magical, the combination. All right, so let's talk about the Cabernet. This is a 2018 Cabernet clay, and 2018 vintage on the Cabernet. And tell us a little bit about this. Obviously, this is a flagship for Grgich Hills.
Yes, it is. And just real quick, the 2018 Merlot is 100% Merlot. So you are absolutely right.
I thought it was.
Paying attention.
And
the Cabernet is our second most produced wine. We make about 15,000 cases of this. Typically a blend, mostly cab, usually in that 88 to 92% range. This one gets a little bit of Merlot, but oftentimes we'll have a small amount, 1 or 2% of both Cab Franc and Petit Verdot.
mm-hmm.
We grow both those in Yountville. So just an excellent wine, showcases our style very well. Excellent as a young wine, very drinkable. But this wine lays down and evolves and just gets better with age. And typically, we're, as a estate grower winery, we own outright all of our own vineyards. So we don't have to buy fruit on the open market, which means we have a significant cost point advantage on a wine like this. Mm-hmm. So we don't have to charge $100 a bottle for this Cabernet that, frankly, we could. It's an excellent Cabernet. It'll stand up all day long to any $100 Cabernet in the Valley, Cab Blend. And it's just a testament to us being a certified organic estate grower that we're able to produce a wine of this quality and sell it at a Napa Valley price.
Right. And so this is a full bottle is around $70, 72. And the half bottles, which grab them now, they're available on the website. The half bottles are 37. I had this with a Stilton blue cheese just now. If you want to blow the mind of your taste buds, do the Stilton blue cheese and this Cabernet. It is just wonderful, absolutely magical as a combination. I have to say, the other thing that I've been noticing is my 4 wines, which I poured at the beginning of the session, have had a chance to work in the glass, get a little bit of oxygenation, and they've also warmed up a little bit. And both the whites and certainly the reds have just gotten better and better over the last 45 minutes. And that's just a point that we should, it's a very basic thing, and we have a lot of very experienced and knowledgeable wine drinkers on this broadcast right now. You can never discount the basic stuff like that. And I have to tell you, these working in the glass and getting a little bit of closer to room temperature has made all the difference. And then pairing them with the right food. Wow. What were the growing seasons like for tonight's vintages? So you had 2018 for the reds, you had 2018 for the Chardonnay, and 2019 for the Sauv Blanc?
Well, we've had incredibly good growing vintages really since at least 2012. 2011 was a cooler year, got panned real bad, but we now know 2011 are some excellent Cabernets that are aging spectacularly. So fundamentally, drought is not good for the people of California, but it's really good for wine grapes. So as long as we've had these, different, kind of stressful drought years, it mostly is very good for the grapes. It has been catching up. So the last couple years have been very, very good. Good yield. It might have been 18 that I think the yields were so big that we, for the first time in years, had more juice than we could handle. Because we have finite tanks and things like that. So some local wineries, that was a year where if you see anything at any level that's 2018 Rutherford, Cabernets at any price point, because what happens in those abundant years, we sell a little bit of fruit to people that wouldn't have normally got it. That means they have to sell some of their fruit, and it kind of filters all the way down on a bumper crop year like 2018. So
Yep.
very, very good, and the quality spectacular. So we've been very, very lucky, and we've had fires in some of those years, and sometimes, often the first years, everything was harvested prior to the fires, and then I think it was 19 that's in bottles now. Why we were worried, so far we have not experienced any negative effects. We really feel it's a testament to our growing style that the organic grapes really were much more resistant to smoke taint. So while others lost whole crops, as of yet, we haven't lost a drop, but we test it constantly.
Yep. So Clay, we're rounding the corner here on third base and heading home. And we got a question from Rebecca, which is a great question. The 2018 cab on the site is members only. How do they gain access? I sent her your email address so she can reach out directly, but is that the best way?
Yes, anything that is wine club member only or some of those things, yeah, you'll have to get them through me direct. I can override it where the coupon won't allow that.
Thank you so much, Clay, for doing this. A couple of other quick questions. Do you farm biodynamically?
Mostly. We used to be certified biodynamic back about 2006.
Yep.
We follow almost all of the processes, very regenerative. There's a few things in the biodynamics we choose not to follow. I don't know exactly what they are, but we are following the vast majority of the practices. We just don't try to stick to that certified. We are fully certified organic in all 5 of our wineries.
Got it. Okay. There's another question from Bob. If you wanted to build a mixed case of other wines, does the discount code work to honor across the site, or is it just these 4?
Oh, no, the discount code is going to work on anything that it will let you order online.
Okay.
The advantage of ordering via email or by telephone is I have access to all the wines. And on case orders, I will give you 20% savings, which unfortunately my coupon won't do. I can't do tiered discounts with the coupon, but I can do them in real life. So I'll help you there.
Got it. Yeah. So that's a good one. And thank you, Bob, for asking. The offer is across the site on the one, a lot there. And again, email Clay directly. That's going to be your best access. So Clay, thank you so much for doing this. It's been a pleasure. And I got to tell you, every time this is our 3rd virtual tasting with you. We've done a couple of private virtuals. This was the first public one. And so for everybody watching, we wanted to bring Grgich and Clay and the magic to all of our audience, as opposed to just some private virtual tastings. And it is such a pleasure to taste these wines. They're absolutely delicious. And for all of you who tuned in, thank you for watching and hanging out with us. Take advantage of the offers, please. And we'll see you soon. Next week, we're going to be back with Mendocino County, way up north. We're going to do Saracena Vineyards, which has some absolutely spectacular wines. And Mendocino County is kind of like Sonoma was 20 years ago. So it's an undiscovered gem. Next week, next Wednesday, the 23rd. Clay, I will see you soon, my friend. And we're looking forward to enjoying more Grgich Hills Estate. Say hello to Violet and Mike for me.
I will, Sam. Thank you as always. We look forward to these so much. Your group is great. Everybody, you've been fantastic. Great questions and involvement. Thank you very much for having us.
Absolutely, and we love having you. We'll have you back. We'll do something in the fall. We'll head into the holidays with a Grgich tasting. For Alicia's question, the info about the next tasting, just log on to, I'm going to put it in the chat here, crushwinexp.com. That's the website. That's our website, and you'll be able to register RSV for free for Saraceno next week. And we'll be with the winemaker Alex McGregor, who's amazing. All right, guys. Be safe, everybody. Enjoy some wine, and we'll see you very soon. Thanks, Clay.
Thanks, Sam.
All
Bye
right.
now.
Take care now. Bye-bye.